Hi friends, it's Angie, Angela Power Disney, angelasclashes.org. No makeup on. And transitioning into spring in the Republic of Ireland. I keep dressing too warm. Um, and then it's beautiful sunshine. So I'm gonna just bite the bullet. I thought today was May Day. It's not, that's tomorrow. And tomorrow, in my opinion, will be the 8-year anniversary of my sister's suspicious death. She died on, according to rigor mortis research and my first-hand experience, I believe she died on May Day, although the coroner insisted on writing May 2nd. So I'll go and mark the grave tomorrow, even though the Bible says, let the dead bury the dead, and why do you look for them here? They're not here. But there's just something nice about certain traditions, there's something nice about. So I've made a few quick notes, and I didn't do an update last month, and it was hugely, and I think this is not just me, I think it was hugely traumatic for a lot of people, as was much of the beginning of April. So I still try and put my best foot forward. I don't like to do an update when I'm feeling overwhelmed or depressed or whatever. So I do sometimes let you know when things are bad, but I think it's human to prefer to put your best foot forward and just to, um, what's the good news? Is there any good news? My daughter had a book she loved when she was little, and it was like, and then this happened, and then the answer is, oh, that's good. And then it's like, no, but then that happens. It's like, oh, that's bad. And then this happened. Oh, that's good. And that's what it's felt like, a roller coaster. Anyway, I'll fire through these because the sun is starting to shine, and I know vitamin D is a huge part of maintaining your immune system and fighting off depression. And I just love the sun. And we're getting some nice vitamin D sunshine. But I've still got a Catholic guilt thing. It's like I have to do some work before I'm allowed out to sit in the garden. So anyway, here we go. Right. Right, that's probably number one on my list. Yeah, number one. Finally, this backup, well, originally it was my survivor disclosure channel, and I had a separate journalism channel which had more than double the amount of subscribers, and it was organic. I think it was still suppressed, but it was organic, and that got taken down. And for the first time, I feel like YouTube have allowed this channel. They've kind of taken the brakes off a little bit, so it felt thoroughly shadow banned and thoroughly suppressed. And even my monthly updates used to get 1,000 views, without blinking. Everything's gone down. But just recently, since I did a few American interviews, I did 5 with Lisa Meister on Only God Rescued Me. I did 2 or 3 with Emma of the Imagination podcast, and I just recently did one with Josh Monday, which is due to be out tomorrow. And since then, and since almost all of my videos have been approved on review, like automatically every video I make is rejected by YouTube as suitable for advertisers. But there's a request review function, and 95% of the time they approve after a couple of days. It just means I've had to learn to be patient to put things out. And because I don't, like, I'm just going to go into detail. You know me, I'll ramble. I don't like videos I don't like advertisements or advertisements, they call it over there. I don't like them midstream. It's distracting to me. It's like, so I only authorize ads at the beginning and end of a video. Yeah, and I ban non-skippable ads because they can go on for 4 hours. So, but anyway, my subscribers now seem to be increasing organically as opposed to being suppressed. So A very big welcome to all the new subscribers, especially those from across the pond, which I have a great affinity with. I went to university age 21 in the UK and originally enrolled for English and theatre. And then at the end of my first year, a professor approached me and said, I've just got funding to do American literature, and I would really like to invite you onto my course if you would consider switching, I had to drop theatre studies basically. And my, like, this is my Edwina Curry quote. When he said to me, I've got funding to do a degree in American literature, and I said, is there such a thing? I had such a snobby British opinion. And little did I know that some of my favourite books would turn out to be like Huckleberry Finn and Moby Dick, and some I avoided. I avoided some, and I'm glad I did, since I've done my research decades later, like The Catcher in the Rye and Allen Ginsberg, and people that turned out to be paedophiles, and secret society members. But that's a whole nother thing. So, but I lived in, and I remember in my first year at university as well, it was the 80s, 1978, and Margaret Thatcher was in power in the UK. And there was a great movement and resistance against her. We had the miners' strike, and we had the H Block hunger strikes, and she was, to me, a sellout because she was allegedly just a grocer's daughter, upper working class, lower middle class, who made it, and then betrayed all her compatriots by becoming an elite, in my opinion. So in my first year at University of Warwick, I was a bit of a left-wing activist, and I was vice president of the Students' Union, and we ended up occupying the administration building for 10 days in protest against Maggie Thatcher's policies. And it spread across the UK, and it was crazy. It was crazy. And I also did 22, because I thought the theatre studies degree was going to be great, because a load of Joan Littlewood and Clive James or somebody, all the East 15 theatre crowd in the late 70s, they all took the job in academia. They got paid big bucks to go and do this theatre studies course. So I thought, okay, great, because I wanted to be an actress back then. But it turned out to be academics. Like, you would turn out to be a dramaturg. You'd get a job as a critic with the Times, or you'd go into the sort of academic side of theatre, and I was more interested in acting. But anyway, so to make up for that theatre course being all academic, I took part in 22 plays and 2 films in my first year. Extracurricular, and never being a natural academic back then, I only had 11 hours of lectures a week scheduled in my first year at university, English literature and theatre studies. So I thought, oh, that's great. I've got loads of time. I just go to my classes for 11 hours a week, throw an assignment in now and then, and then I'll go and act, But so at the end of the first year, a professor took me aside after we'd occupied the Senate building for 10 days. And I just scraped through my first year exams because I was, and he said to me, first of all, Angela, 11 hours a week is just your lectures. You're supposed to spend a further 25 minimum in the library studying. And I grew up thinking libraries were for dorks. Like, who goes to the library? Like, only people that wear anoraks. So he says, yeah, no, 11 hours a week is just, you're supposed to self-motivate in your study, aged, most of my compatriots were 18, but I was 21. It's like, no, you need to have initiative and self-motivate and go to the library. And the other thing he said, if you continue in your activism, you may end up with I think he called it a red file or folder, that would be compiled by my university saying she's a left-wing activist. And he said it will follow you the rest of your life. And it would mean things like you can never get a job with the civil service, you can never go to America, you know, and you'll just be on the watch list. So he said, every protester, there was 500 of us from the Students' Union that protested and occupied. Every protester that failed their first year exams was thrown out. Just they weren't given the opportunity to do resits, nothing. Because they protested, they used the loophole that they'd also failed their exams, even by 2% something. And he said, Angie, you passed, but I need you to rein in the activism or you're going to mess up. So I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that, fine. And then in the light of that, the other professor says, will you come and do American literature? And I did, and I loved it. And I almost got sent to Duke University on a year's scholarship. Phew, lucky escape. I did act in some amazing plays by students that were sent on exchange from Duke University. I acted in a play about charlatans in the evangelical movement. It was called Tickle, based on the scripture Mene Mene Tekel Upharsin, like you've been weighed in the scales and found wanting. And this student that came from Duke University to Warwick, James something, his parents were charlatans and they used to fake healings and you know, get actors to jump out of wheelchairs and just, you know, like manipulate thousands and thousands from innocent Christians who believed them. So yeah, best 3 years of my life. I loved university. I absolutely loved it. And then I emigrated there. I graduated in 81. I wanted to take a year off and travel. I was due to go to Argentina, but the Falklands War broke out in 82. And instead, I ended up going to Spain for a year. Then I decided I would settle in Spain. I came back to sell up my apartment in London, with just the key to it. But I got hooked into a cult, which was EST, Erhard Seminar Training. Then it went on to become called the Forum. Now it's called the Landmark Institute. It's a spin-off of Scientology. And I still need to do a deep dive on exposing that decade of my life, which was and is, in my opinion, my experience, a cult. But in 85, I emigrated to America. And I thought, right, I've got my degree. I did a year's postgrad in journalism in Dublin in 84. So in 85, I thought, right, I've got my degree, English and American literature. I've got my postgrad in journalism. Off I go to America. Worst comes to worst, I can be a journalist, but really I want to make it in Hollywood. Oh, God forbid. And but I emigrated to San Francisco, and I do remember back in 85 when I emigrated there, I stayed till 90. I do remember feeling back then that for the first time ever I belonged. And I think it's because nobody belonged, especially in California, in San Francisco. And I lived in the Marin County on a houseboat. So it was like a paradise for the non-belonging, you know. Even if you worked in the city in San Francisco, you could go to work on a ferry boat from Sausalito to San Francisco to the wharf, Fisheries Wharf or whatever it was, Fisherman's Wharf. And on a Friday evening, where everybody finished their office jobs in San Francisco, I didn't do one, but many did. On a Friday evening, you'd get the ferry back and there was a jazz band and a bar on the ferry. And you just let all the worries of the world float away. And then when you actually walked on to your, what do you call it, where there's like, it's not, anyway, it's like when you walk on to this, it's not a gangplank, it's a walkway with houseboats either side of it. I lived on Liberty Dock. But the minute you start to feel the bay float, you'd come. I didn't regularly do. Sometimes I'd just go on the ferry for the jazz. It's just so wonderful. But the minute you walked on the whatever it's called, and you start to feel the bay floating underneath you, and you knew you were just going to go into your houseboat and have a beautiful weekend. It's like the worries of the world floated away. So even though I wouldn't live in California now by choice, and I did try and re-emigrate there in around 2009, I was going to move back. I was actually going to move to Santa Monica with my two youngest children. And I spent 6 weeks there, and then I went back at Christmas, and then I thought, California, it's not like I remember in 1982, you know. And even the last time I visited, I don't know, 2010 or something, Venice Beach. It's like you could go to the most beautiful rooftop garden above a hotel, but you were kind of stepping over about 15 homeless people on the way to this posh hotel. And it shocked me. It shocked me. I hate homelessness. And I remember talking to one homeless person. He said, well, this is the Holy Grail. It's like, if you're homeless in America and you can make it to the West Coast, you won't be cold very often, you know, and sleeping out won't be life-threatening. You know, so it's almost like that California was, even back in the 80s and 90s, well, the last time, 2010, even back then, it was a hodgepodge of dreams and nightmares, broken people, just a hub of broken people. So yeah, I don't recognize it now, but the point I'm making is because I've connected, long ramble, because I've connected with several American YouTubers, podcasters, etc. I do feel an affinity. I'm not American, but I've always felt like neither am I English, neither am I Irish. I'm like my father's Irish, my father was Irish, my mother was English, and I never felt like I belonged anywhere until I went to America, and nobody belonged anywhere, and everybody had a mixed heritage. So I'm really honoured and delighted to have connected with those people, and check my blog, angelascashes.org. I'll try and feature all those interviews I've done off channel. That was a long introduction. Yeah, right. That's another thing. I was doing accounts for 2021 and 2022, and I noticed lots of donations from names I don't recognize on my GoFundMe platform, which is public. And when you minus all the expenses of my work, it's very modest, but it's hugely appreciated. But as I was going through doing the accounts, I felt embarrassed that I didn't recognize the names of many people that had been kind enough to send me donations. And I don't know if everybody would want their name read out, but I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'm really grateful, really grateful. It's been a very tough year and a half since for multiple reasons. It's been a very tough, I've been asset rich and cash poor for about the last year and a half. And it's been a huge adjustment. And so there were months where things were really, really tight. I got a lot of support in March because all my website and domain and security and all that stuff it all comes up during March. So I really appreciate those that helped me then. And other months I might just get a tiny little donation that might cover the internet. And I appreciate that too. But I just want to say to those that I haven't thanked personally, please take this as a personal thank you. And if you need to reach out to me for any reason, not that you do, I take it that the donations are just a gift and you don't expect anything in return. But if there's anything you want to ask me or disclose to me or tell me or share with me or pray with me about, probably the best way to get hold of me is Messenger, Facebook Messenger. I know a lot of people don't like that. It's just I'm 65, and so I've got used to the two best platforms. The best platform to get hold of me is Angela Teresa Power Disney on Facebook, and then send me something in Messenger or Twitter DMs. I'm much slower with Instagram. I'm just Instagram learning, you know. So I might be slower to respond. And emails, I get so many emails. That's the other thing I wanted to apologize to. Because I've done several shows on American platforms, I've had an awful lot of response via emails, Gmails, and there are people waiting for me to interview them. There are people offering help. There are people offering that I've offered to connect with other people, and it's just I'm also a survivor. I'm also in a huge period of change in my life, you know, and so forgive me for I'm not a young thing responding instantly, but I do get there in the end. And if I don't, remind me. So I'm partway through a series with Sharissa on spiritual warfare, which is getting very good feedback. I'm partway through a series with Sue on the Antichrist, possible Antichrist. And I've got several specialist groups. If you connect with me on Facebook, I've got a private group called Mind Control, Social Engineering, and Diabolical Experiments in the UK and US, and to be honest, the rest of the Western world. And I've got a public group called The Woman at the Well, a Christian group for the non-religious. And yeah, so between all those multiple platforms, I have output daily, but I still sometimes feel overwhelmed despite the support. But it's not for want of saying thank you to those that reach out and respond and donate and help and pray and share. And like, I'm really excited with some of the channels I've discovered. Actually, I won't necessarily share which ones, but I'm binging on some of the research channels that have been sent to me as resources, especially for survivors and in the field of D.I.D. Okay. Yeah, I covered that. Okay, on the negative side, it was confirmed finally after years that my joint damage is ciprofloxacin damage. So I need to get a solicitor. I know, in defense of myself or anything, I will always present myself. I won't be represented. In terms of, I've only ever made one claim before in my life, which was successful in the High Court. But this ciprofloxacin damage has been life-changing. I'm pretty much crippled at the minute, and you know, recommended CT scan and probable surgery, and then probable need for care. You know, short of a miracle, I've been disabled. You know, but I do believe in miracles, so I'm just preparing for the worst, hoping for the best, praying for the best, and preparing for the worst. And I've been doing a lot of personal stuff in terms of preparing for the worst and setting up my retirement. I'm due to be, I feel bad about this. I'm going to be 66 on the 16th of the 6th. It's my birthday in June. I'm going to be 66. So I'm trying to pray away the gematria. Anyway, let's fire on through. This is just a day review. I haven't heard, and also, yeah, right. I haven't heard anything back from Google since they messaged me a few weeks ago saying the Guardian have tried to compel us again to release your data, including that of your subscribers. What? But I need to contact them and say, I did write to them. I did email and send a handwritten letter saying absolutely not, that is absolutely not okay. But I haven't followed that up yet to say, did you go ahead and give my data away again, but as my mother would say, there's no news is good news. No, I don't know what's going on. The world is so crazy at the moment. It's almost like, which way do you want to take me out? It's like, choose your method. Just, I prefer the guillotine, actually. The least painful death, no, but I don't want to be a martyr, really. I'd rather fight on. I'd rather fight on. Okay. Yeah, I had a visit for a few days for a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful subscriber with the same education and excellence that I had in the 10 years I was in a cult, which is attention to detail and doing something 100%, living a life like you only had a few days left to live. And it was supposed to nurture a spirit of excellence, but in many it nurtured perfectionism and neuroses. But anyway, nonetheless, this beautiful, beautiful subscriber came to visit, stayed a few days, made a huge difference just in the time she was here. And she's gone on to the next thing for her, but I hope our paths cross again. I've also got a lady somewhere else offering to help, but it's got to be cyber help. And like many of my age, cyber is a challenge. So before she can help online, she has to kind of polish her rusty skills up. So she's doing that. And that's why I'm so grateful for my assistant, who's only 40 or something. But he's like, he laughs at me when I say I need to do this, this, this. He's like, oh yeah, bing, 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 done. It's like, whoa. But anyway, so don't think I've forgotten you or I'm not grateful. Yeah. I'm trying not to disclose as much personally because I'm learning in my healing that a lot of the oversharing and blurting is not just ADHD. It was from the cult, which is a Scientology spin-off. And it also happens in some churches, especially in counseling and deliverance ministry. And what it is, I realize what it is that everybody is supposed to over disclose so that there's a record, so that in the event you try and leave the cult or the church or the relationship or whatever it might be, you will have spilled your guts so much and made yourself so vulnerable that these people can then trash you and character assassinate you and destroy you as they leave in a trail of glory, blaze of. And so I did realize that, and this is the same for everybody listening, God loves you the way you are. I heard this lovely saying years ago when I first got saved. It's like, Jesus loves you exactly as you are, but the Holy Spirit loves you so much, he's not going to leave you that way. It's like, you have to grow and change, grow and change, grow and change. You have to learn. If you're not learning, you just adopted a tradition or whatever. We walk out our salvation daily in fear and trembling. We're supposed to grow and change daily. So I may share less personal stuff online, or I may always be a blurter. And there will always be people who hate me. It's like, oh, did she just say that out loud? Oh my God. But anyway, so just briefly on a personal level, it's a good old babble here, isn't it? My 95-year-old father's house is being emptied. He died on the 6th of July last year. This is the end of April. And it's been pretty emotional. And a bit mysterious too, because things like my original birth cert, my divorce papers, my journalism certs, different things were there that I have no idea why they were there. I don't know. I don't understand. So I could either go conspiracy theorist and say somebody took them from my house. I can think of some reasons why my journalism certs would be there, because I immigrated to America in 85 for 5 years from the farm. But I didn't have my divorce until after America, my first marriage divorce. And And why would I leave my birth cert? Why would I leave my birth? I ended up having to get another one because I couldn't find it anywhere, not realizing it was in my parents' house. But anyway, just I'm grateful for a sister that gave those things to me, and we met briefly, and it was a bit emotional, and but she gave me back, things that were mine, and also gave me some photographs and paperwork of my parents that has blown me away. To be honest, I can't wait to share some of them with you, including Caldecott Castle thing with the Freemasonic seal of my father inducted as the Baron Nicholas of Dungarvan, and just different things that I had a different excuse for in the past, and seeing the documents in black and white is a bit shocking, so I've had a lot of crying and a lot of, it's emotional. A very dear subscriber just recently lost her father, and it's emotional. Grief is an emotional thing. The field, yeah, the field. I'm old John B. Keane. I think I'd love to write a modern day version of the field. But the moment where I'm at is not only do I not want to sell my acre, I want to buy the other three, and I don't know if that's going to be feasible. The law has been broken in terms of, for a good while now, I wasn't given a copy of my sister's accounts when she died. I wasn't given a copy of my mother's account. This is despite being beneficiary. I wasn't given a copy of those accounts. I haven't been given details of the probate solicitor. And normally I'm just a pushover. I'm just like, oh, can't be dealing with the conflict. But I actually am learning to grow up a little bit, and I don't want to go the full. I don't want to go into lawfare because it's just energy draining. But at the same time, I need to stop being a mug and stop getting mugged off and robbed over and over again. I need to stop that. Yeah, my beautiful assistant had a catastrophic fall, which also makes me think how many people have been administered ciprofloxacin without their knowledge. Because I've also had somebody else in my healthcare team report the same thing, where the joints just stopped doing what they were intended to do with no good reason, no good explanation. So as I get older, I'm getting more and more leery of pharmaceuticals, big pharma, and I'll keep you updated on that as we go. And yeah, that's just me supposedly planning my retirement because I'm going to be 66 on the 16th of 6th. But as my assistant tells me, he's like, "You're not allowed to retire. Don't be silly. You know you won't. We have to do this." And I also want to acknowledge that Luke McKee appeared on the American podcast that's coming out tomorrow and did a superb job. Just there was also an ex-OTO member on the panel, a veteran and rapper, and they were all youngsters. I felt like the granny, but it was nice. It was nice. They did wonderfully, and that Josh Monday. So that's it. And if I do premieres and just live in the chat, I try and keep it to 6 p.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. And subscribe, share, like. Most of all, pray. And I'm sorry to be all giggly and smiley because sometimes that's just a front. And this might apply to you guys too. If we need to cry and howl and wail and weep, we've got to stop doing an Instagram version of life, because we are, in my opinion, living in the end times, and very urgent times, and horrendous attacks have come upon human liberty, freedom, morality. There is urgency and treachery and corruption and child abuse and trafficking, ritual abuse, all around. So a smiley face isn't going to be an appropriate cover. So I do assure you, though, I have to say I'm camera shy when I'm really in the depths, but I do assure you that you're not alone in going through the trials and tribulations that we are in the midst of. All right. God bless. Please check the links and lots of love.